Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 85th take live from Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I am so pleased, so privileged, and so honored to have you all with us tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show. This is a show that, despite recent social media posts, will not bore you, I assure you. And I am so excited to have our guest on this evening. But before I get to introducing him, I would like to thank the folks that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show, of course, is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate recently announced that their limited edition Acid Cuba Arte is now shipping to retailers nationwide, featuring art from 5 of Brooklyn's iconic living artists in the graffiti culture. This milestone product was introduced at last month's IPCPR trade show held in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Acid Cuba Arte is a limited edition torpedo wrapped in a luscious broadleaf Maduro wrapper, bright Indonesian binder, and Nicaraguan fillers. Each water tower humidor features one of the 7 unique designs that includes 20 beautifully packaged Acid Cuba Arte cigars with a Boveda pack to maintain humidity. President of Drew Estate and co-founder Jonathan Drew, these broadleaf torpedoes are the most beautiful figurados that I have ever seen. They are truly exquisite. The level of craftsmanship of the Cuba Arte is equally matched in the packaging, as the Brooklyn graffiti artist deeply connected with the vision, culture, and scope of the Acid brand. Drew Estate has created a Brooklyn Nicaraguan masterpiece that screams from the downtown Brooklyn rooftops. This is our New York accent. And if you guys are tuning in tonight on Facebook Live, we really appreciate it. You'll be also available to see us later on our YouTube channel. But if you are listening to wherever you listen to podcasts, because we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podbean, Spotify, TuneIn, and many, many more. You are listening to us exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars is steeped in tobacco tradition. For over 150 years, the Bailey family has been part of America's tobacco heritage, passionately caring for the land they cultivate in Keysville, Virginia. Cornelius and Anthony's devotion to the finest grown tobacco and foremost aspects of craftsmanship allows them to introduce the most exquisite cigars to the market. They invite you to enjoy their portfolio of premium hand-rolled cigars and experience their dedication to producing an exceptional product. So welcome to our 85th take. I'm so excited to have my guest. So let me, without further ado, would love to introduce you guys to the National Sales Manager of the United States, because this is a worldwide global brand known as Royal Agio or as Balmoral Cigars, Mr. Zev Kaminetsky. Zev, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you? I'm a mister. I'm a big time now.
You know what, you did everything you possibly could to make sure that we didn't have viewers tonight by asking if anyone was bored to go ahead and tune in. I appreciate you spreading the word out. But man, I'm telling you, the hashtag, the curse of Zev, it's not hashtag Coop Tracker level of hotness, but I mean, it's up there. You got to admit.
Well, it's not as hot as him because, it's Coop, but I mean, it's just been around a lot longer. So I think it started to fade. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. I mean, it really is a curse. And there are people out there that don't even know me that tag me when they have travel problems. And I think it's hilarious.
That's funny. That is absolutely funny. I mean, for those people who have been living under the social media rock, I mean, just tell us a little bit about the curse of Zev. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna already switch this up on it a little bit. So I was actually told about the curse of Zev a little bit before last year's trade show, and my partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Coop's like, "Hey, do you know Zev of Royal Agio used to be with Drew Estate?" And I said, "Yeah, I think we shook hands a couple of times, and or we're social media acquaintances or whatever." And he's like, "Do you know about his travel woes? His travel woes are legendary." And so he goes on and on, tells his story. We meet up at the Royal Agio booth last year and everything, talk a little bit about it. And then I'll be damned if you're not freaking 4 people in front of me on the flight that we're leaving Vegas out of. I'm like, are you kidding me? So luckily we got to my place. I don't know what happened to you after that. Probably something terrible, but
it was Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, the little monorail up top where you got to take it to get to the other gate to get on your plane was so full that it went 4 times before anybody could actually fit on it, and I had to end up doing Steve Martin from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, running through or an OJ, but depending on who's watching, running through the Dallas airport to get from one side to the other. So,
So
congratulations.
how long is this? How long has this travel woes been taking you? Like, is it like since you've been in the industry? Has it been all your life? Like,
So honestly, it's funny that you brought that up. It was like 3 days ago. I had one of my Facebook memories come up from even before I was in this industry, and I didn't even remember it being that bad. That I had a bunch of travel problems. Um, it's just something. Growing up, it was even funny. We used to joke because we go see my mom's family. So obviously, she's not a Kaminetsky, and she had 3 sisters. And the joke always was, the more I think about this, it was called the Kaminetsky curse back then. I remember they lived in Brooklyn, and we would go in. The 3 sisters would be driving in with the grandkids to go see grandparents, and we'd drive around the block and drive around the block and drive around the block. We ended up parking 15 blocks away, and every time, as soon as you walked up, car pulls out, 2 cars pull in. Oh, it's my other 2 aunts. So I guess it's a long-standing thing, but the social media version, as far as the industry goes, is actually a hilarious story. Um, I was with Drew Estate for a long time. When I was a rep, I was never a big social media guy, never a big fan of posting, and but they wanted me to do it, and that's how we kind of get known, and that's what everybody there is known for. And I was just looking for something to post that wasn't cigars to try to get people to watch. And every time I'd have a little flight delay or a little flight problem, the stuff that everybody has, I would post it, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's for people who never heard me tell these stories, it's not bad stuff until about 4 months ago. It's funny stuff. I mean, I took my wife down to Nicaragua on cigar safari, and we're sitting on the tarmac in Charlotte on one of those little puddle jumpers before American and US Air had merged. And we're just sitting there, and all of a sudden the flight attendant comes out of the bathroom. We're in the back row. She walks up to the front, walks off the plane onto the tarmac. 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, she'll remember more than I will, comes back on with 4 rolls of toilet paper. And says, sorry, folks, FAA regulations say with this number of people on the plane, you have to have X number of rolls of toilet paper. So we were delayed 40 minutes for toilet paper. Man, I could do this all night. I get the 2 funniest ones were that one. I was interviewing my replacement when I got promoted at Drew Estate to regional, and we were flying back to Charlotte together, and we were an hour and 20 minutes delayed. And as we finally get in the air, and the pilot says, "Hey, folks, don't worry, everything's cool. We just when we were trying to close the hatch after pressurizing the plane, it wouldn't close, so we duct taped it. And the guy I was with was deathly afraid of flying. So it's just,
of course,
it's always been a joke. It's always been funny. I feel bad because it's really is a curse, though. I mean, people will talk to me and say, ha ha, I can get there. I talked to you. I'm going to make my flight. And they always end up calling me and say, you son of a, I missed my flight again. I remember even when at Drew Estate, when the new CEO came in, he comes over and he goes to he's reaching to hug me. And Dave Lafferty just says, no, don't touch the guy. If you touch him, your flight's not going to make it. So I don't believe in that stuff. He hugs me. He leaves for the airport. He calls me 3 hours later and says, I hate you. My flight to Chicago was canceled. I'm stuck here for the weekend. So that's the curse of Zev. Now, a couple months ago, I did have a plane catch on fire while I was on it.
Oh, goodness.
Which was the first time that I guess it wasn't a joke, but we were on the ground. So, and if, anyway, that's where the curse came from. It just became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now for everybody out there, don't talk to me. Don't tag me. Don't look at me. Don't mention my name before you're flying.
I remember I had a situation where I was actually in my hometown. So I'm just across the giant state, mind you, of Texas. So I'm visiting my parents in El Paso. And I'm trying to get home to Dallas. This was back in the spring this year. And, wouldn't you know it, I'm scheduled for the first flight out of El Paso to get into Dallas. I ended up getting out of El Paso on the last flight, and which was, about 17 hours later. And so, and I'm posting my woes, of course, on social media, because that's what you do. You look for empathy, and Zev comments, he's like, Bear, this is a Tuesday for me. Like it's an everyday thing. The ironic thing is, so like the one thing I got to keep asking, man, I mean, if this really is a thing, and I'm not necessarily a believer in curses either, and look who I root for, I mean, for the better part of a century, we had the curse of the Bambino hanging over our head. But the question is, you know, why do you? I gotta ask, why do you do it, man? Why do you have this why do you have this job where you have to travel so much, and
Oh,
you put up with all these woes? I mean,
I guess I should have told you before we came on the air. I quit. I don't do this anymore. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, in all honesty, I do have bad luck. It's really not as often, considering how much I was flying or how much I fly on and off. It's only one out of every 5 or 6 flights. And in all honesty, I love what I do. You just learn to adapt. So most people, if they're done, let's say on a Saturday, they're touring down in your area and they think, oh, I'm going to take the red eye home. Nope. I just book myself the next morning. I mean, it's, you just adapt. I love what I do. I mean, I get to travel places I never would have traveled before. I get to meet people. I mean, cigars bring the world together. It's kind of a running joke I have, but what else could I be doing where I get to fly to? I mean, in September, I'm flying into Boise, Idaho on a Sunday, and I'm working my way south of Spokane somewhere and then flying home the next Monday. And I'm not going to make cold calls. I'm not going to, to sell, no offense, computer software. I mean, I'm going to go hang out in cigar shops and talk to consumers and you know what? You take the good with the bad. If this is the worst stuff that I have to deal with, in all honesty, there's a lot worse things out there. I know lots of people that have gotten divorced from having to travel the way we do. They miss their kids' soccer game. They miss their kids' graduation. If this is the worst I have to deal with this stuff, then you know what? Bring it.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, you had mentioned before the show that you're sitting out in your beautiful, beautiful backyard in wonderful North Carolina. I was kind of hoping that you would invite Coop over, considering you guys are next door neighbors practically.
We literally, I didn't realize it. It's like I turn out of my neighborhood, I make a left, I make a right, and I just take that road straight for 15 minutes. And we live that close to each other. I mean, in all honesty, I don't like the guy, so why would I invite him over my house? But no, I'm just kidding. Hey, truthfully, I mean, weekends, as much as I travel, weekends I really try my best are for me and my family. So, we were doing we just bought the house, doing yard work all day, doing stuff around the house. I mean, laundry, all that kind of stuff. So time just flew by and didn't even think about it. It's okay. He'll find me at some point and yell at me.
Speaking of that, you guys just bought this home, you guys just moved and everything. And considering, what we were just talking about with the curse of Zev, you have to have one of the most supportive wives in the world to deal with the fact that, you may supposed to be get home on Tuesday, but you actually do get home on Thursday because of all these crazy travel stories.
Well, I wouldn't be where I am without her. So, I mean, everybody's going to tell you that they have the best wife in the world, but obviously I'm going to tell you that I do. She also, by the way, is a victim of the curse. The other day, she missed her connection out of Atlanta, and she had to drive 4 hours home. But it's not even just the travel stuff. I mean, through everything I've gone through over the last couple of years in the industry, we sold a house in Charlotte. We moved to outside of Fort Lauderdale. We moved out of the apartment, bought a house. We I had to get rid of the house, moved to Tampa. So we moved 4 times in 3 years. So supportive isn't even the right word. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
So what you talked about your travel and you talked about places that you lived in and everything. Where considering you've kind of returned now to North Carolina, what's been the best place that you've enjoyed calling home?
Oh, Charlotte is my home. I live outside of Charlotte right now, but people who know me, who even growing up, I mean, if you ask me where I'm from, I tell them I'm from Charlotte. Even though I was born and raised in Jersey and I've moved all over, this has become my home. And as soon as everything ended with the last situation, it was the first thing I did was just figure, how do I get back here? So this is my home.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about your home now in terms of your career and what you've been doing the last couple of years in the premium tobacco business. So you came to premium tobacco by way of the beer industry. And I'd love to get your take on what you think is the biggest comparison. How is the beer industry and the tobacco industry the same? Like, what's the one quality that you can be like, this is the way it is in both industries, and it's one of those things that you might have been caught off guard by, might have been surprised by.
Truthfully, the one thing I really think that is the most similar, and you're going to hear as I talk, a lot of what I talk about is more on the sales and the sales management side of things, less about the products. But uh, it's a both industries are really groups of misfits in a way. I mean, the sales staffs, the management, it's just people who love what they do. More than how much they make. I mean, you'll never be rich doing what we do. You never be rich just working for a beer company, but you just have such a passion for it that I found that, especially now, when I sold beer, there was no craft beer back then. I mean, Magic Hat didn't even exist back then. But even at that point, I mean, Pete's Wicked, I mean, it's old school, but Pilsner Urquell, Blue Moon before they were bought by Coors. I mean, these were craft, these were boutique.
Right.
Just,
Fat Tire when Fat Tire was cool.
Yeah, I mean, Fat Tire got it. Its first year at my distributor was the year after I left it. That's how long it's been gone. But no matter what you're selling, it's the passion of the products, and it brings people together. And now I know people think, oh, beer, everybody's just getting drunk, but we know what we're talking about is people hanging out, having a good beer, sitting down, talking, people sitting around, having a good cigar. It brings the world together. I know I said that before, but people used to ask me all the time how I ended up in this industry, which is a kind of a funny story. But they said, what was it about cigars that you loved? And I said, it was the only other place I found besides that cool local bar you were hanging out. It was the cigar shop, where it didn't matter if you were a Trump fan or an Obama fan nowadays, or if you're a Red Sox fan or there's a Yankee fan, or if I live in the Carolinas, a Duke or a UNC fan. And for that hour, 2 hours, you're sitting together. Yeah, screw you, your team sucks, and you're yelling at each other and you're disagreeing on it. And then you shake hands and you hug and you kiss goodbye. I mean, it's a friendship, it's camaraderie. And that's really what I loved about that industry. And it's also what kept me in this one and lured me into it.
It really, it is the really great equalizer. This is a subject that comes up on pretty much every show that I'm on in one way, form, or fashion or another. And what pleases me to no end is that people in the industry, such as yourself, realize it as well. And I think that's the most glaring part. And I think if we could just find a way to make sure that the people outside of this industry, yes, in a way I'm talking about FDA, but just not even that higher up, or not even to that end, because that's our goal, is to reach those people, but just the everyday person that has no idea, or the family relative or the spouse that maybe not as supportive as ours, and understand what truly, that the cigar shop is really a family, and the community is really a family. And by and large, with today's technology and social media and everything, our family exceeds all 50 states, or in the case of where you're at now, the world, internationally. So you come to, for those people who've missed the introduction, you're currently with the Royal Agio, or as it's known more commonly, Balmoral Cigars. People know it by the Balmoral name, but there are, of course, plenty of other products under the Royal Agio portfolio. And you are the national sales director for this country. And why we emphasize this country being the United States is that Royal Agio is a huge, huge premium tobacco organization. So, Zev, if you could just tell us a little bit about how you came over to Royal Agio, and what that transition has been like a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's actually, it's a funny story, and I'm glad you asked it, because I actually haven't thought about this since I came on board. So when I started in this industry, I actually worked for Camacho. I was the first salesperson hired after it was sold to Davidoff. And during that merger, it was Davidoff, it was Camacho, and it was Cusano. Cusano was actually the U.S. distributor at the time for Royal Agio Cigars, which at that time was just Panther and Maharis cigarillos. So we were selling them as time went. A couple of years later, I moved on. I went on to Drew Estate, and I guess it was the last year I was rep before I became regional. Drew Estate became the U.S. distributor for Royal Agio. So, and then, as the brands developed and Balmoral came to the U.S. through the Drew Diplomat program, when I parted ways with Drew Estate, I actually left the industry. I went to work for a small vape company, and basically they reached out to me and they reminded me, I mean, since the day I've been in this business, I've always sold their products. Now, in all honesty, I was a little guilty of not understanding some of them as well as I do now. But so they called me and they said, listen, and I was with, sometimes I'm going to get confused when I talk, because if I say us and them, I was with Drew Estate at the time when they chose Royal Agio to separate. And then when they called me, my first question was, what made you do that? And what do you need me for? All you have is cigarillos and you have one Balmoral and Yeho XO. And they said, no. I said, we're going to, we've got a bunch of other brands that have been in the pipeline for a couple of years ready to go. And we just want to, after, I don't know how many decades they were in the U.S. Balmoral was in the U.S. in the 90s. They said, no, we want to basically just, in all honesty, the simplest way to put it, do for us what you did for Drew Estate. Run a sales team and, get our products out there. And that's how I ended up here. It was almost fate in a funny way. I mean, I always joke there's two things that have been consistent for me since I've been in this business. It's 11 years now. One is Royal Agio, having some relationship with the company I work with. And one was my relationship with a specific broker out of Colorado, Jill Hoffman, who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. But those two people or groups have been staples for me the whole time. So this was almost too perfect for me.
So and for those people who don't know, Royal Agio is over a century's worth of history in this industry. So this isn't something that they started doing even in the 90s. They've been doing this for a really long time. And just to kind of give us an idea, we were talking a little bit about before we went live tonight, Zev, and that was just the reach of what Royal Agio has done, because you threw out a couple of product names there for a second, and for the people who've been paying attention to this industry, when we'll talk about what we're smoking here in a second with Balmorals, but the capacity in terms of tobacco, what does that infrastructure look like on an international scale?
So just the quick explanation of who we are. The company's name is, obviously, you said, Royal Agio or Royal Agio, depending on which country you're in, cigars. The company's 115 years old. It is Royal Agio as of 15 years ago. It used to be Agio Cigars. We're based out of Holland, and in Holland, you can become business royalty. Now, I don't know the details to how you get there, but we were actually, after being 100 years old, if I remember right, 100 years old, privately owned, by the same family, and profitable, so they became Royal Agio Cigars. The brands are in, I couldn't tell you how many countries. They're known worldwide. The numbers change depending on who you ask, but as far as cigar production goes, cigar and cigarillo production, we're in the top 5 in the world, and we have been for a long time. And even the Balmoral brand, which is kind of the new one for the U.S. market, that brand is decades old. I kind of joked with you, but when you put up the little video clip of it, there was the Balmoral Royal Selection. That's a Balmoral that's not available in the U.S.
Right.
So, I've heard different numbers. I don't want to be quoted on this, but if I understand correctly, we do between 790 and 800 million cigarillos and cigars a year, which would put us again in the top 5 in total production.
Yeah, and just to kind of put that in perspective, we're talking about, I mean, when we talk about, cigar manufacturers, like, one of the most popular boutiques out there right now is Nick Sueño, and what Skip and Mike are doing in Nicaragua, they do 1 million cigars. Your company does 700 to 800 million cigars, cigarillos, but tobacco production worldwide.
Yes, and all premium. None of it is cigarettes. And I'm not saying that I'm a cigarette smoker too, but I mean, it's all premium cigars, premium tobacco. It's funny because as I travel around, and it's a lot of education for people for who we are, but you'll see a lot of our marketing, a lot of our ads, it always says, we only use the top 5% tobaccos in the world. Or for Balmoral, the tobaccos are all aged, I think it's 6 or 7 years or more. A lot of companies come out and they say things about their tobacco, they say what they do, and I'm not saying they're lying or they're not, but I can tell you that we've been doing what we do for over 100 years. I mean, it's what they know. Boris is 4th generation. And for people who have been tied to this industry for a long time or know the industry, Boris, like we've mentioned, he's now the CEO, the owner. His last name is Wintermans. There used to be a company called Wintermans Tobacco. I think one of the things they were known for was Cafe Creme. And again, I'm going to get the details wrong. They're probably listening and are probably yelling at me all over the world because I'm just the crazy tattooed bald guy from America. But I mean, that was, I think, his 4 generations ago, family split off into 2 companies. So these people have been doing this a long time, and it's passion. You don't do this for a long time just for the business. It's what they love, and through TPD all over Europe and the FDA stuff. I mean, God, one of the first questions I asked on my interview was, why now? I mean, 40 years in the U.S. market, I think 50 years, whatever it is, with Panthers, and you've tried different premium cigars, and this is a time when everybody's selling with all the craziness going on with the FDA, or everybody's panicking about what's going to happen, even though none of us know. And I mean, in all honesty, the answer I was given was simple. It was, we know tobacco. We've always done tobacco. We know how to navigate whatever the legislation requires, and we just want American consumer to enjoy our products like the rest of the world does.
I mean, and that kind of staying power is really what that kind of foundation staying power is really what's going to take you guys into the next 5 years, the next decade, and so on in this business. With who knows what's going to come down the pipe. Things are still up in the air as far as it's concerned, but it's not. The outlook for a lot of companies doesn't look good. But from where you guys stand, you guys have the foundation and the leadership and the lineage to really carry out through even the worst of times that could be coming down the road, which is very encouraging. Because
just to give you a funny one too. I mean, in all honesty, they've done this for so long. They know what's going on. And I mean, one of the jokes that was said to me by somebody within the company was, we didn't get to be who we are in the first 10 years of our 115-year existence. So we're also very realistic. I mean, they know it takes time to build. And as you said, we have the foundation, we have the tobacco, we have the tobacco purchasing power, we have the facilities. I mean, our factory's been in the DR since 1990, and people don't even realize it. So we're positioning ourselves. This is not just coming in and, hey, let's just see what we can sell and then get out of the market. I mean, this is about building brands in the U.S. market that people will enjoy.
So I wanted to go into what we're smoking tonight, Zev. And I think you are lighting up some of the. Are you doing the Maharis, or are you doing the?
Yeah, I'm doing the Maharis. Again, it's been a long, crazy day. So Maharis come in 4 different varieties. This is actually the Red Orient, which is a very subtle, sweet vanilla to it. Everything we do is 100%, again, obviously premium tobacco. I mean, it's hard to see on the camera. It's a cigarillo, but this is who we are. This is kind of what we're known for in other parts of the world. It's what we're known for in the U.S. market. So that's what I'm going with, just plain and simple. I'll probably go through 12 of them while we're on here too.
I had the privilege to sit down at this year's IPCPR with your master blender, Francisco Batista, and we talked particularly about the project that I'm smoking right now, which is the newest Balmoral regular production, of course, which is the Nicaraguan. So this was a cigar that I was really not surprised is a bad word, because that always implies that I wasn't expecting much. But surprise doesn't necessarily have to carry that negative connotation. I had smoked the Connecticut, which I think is absolutely incredible, from last year. I've always been a fan of the Anejo and the XO, the original releases, and and the Oscuro, which is also fantastic as well. And so I kind of was expecting it to kind of go in line with my expectations of being another good cigar. This is a lot different than those other products, and not just different in the sense of the tobacco, but there's a lot. This is a medium to full-bodied cigar. Now, you could argue that the Oscuro and the XO have that kind of characteristic because of the tobacco, specifically the wrapper that's used. But there is a lot more spice in this than any of the other Balmoral product regular productions, and I'm really enjoying. This is I think my 6th one that I've had since the show, and I'm absolutely enjoying it. It's
that's impressive. Cigar. I think I came back with 2 from the show, but they should be shipping soon, so I can go try them a couple more. Now, this one has been very exciting for us, for me as well personally. Obviously I came on board, and we had the Balmoral Añejo XO. The original had been around for a couple of years. At last year's trade show, we basically, it's when we started. Really, it's when we became a full line. You have the Añejo XO Connecticut, which really shocks people from the from the strength and body that comes behind it and the flavors behind it, and then the Oscuro. But the way I kind of describe it to people is everything we do. Remember, mild, medium, and full is very subjective to what people smoke. We're in a very full body renaissance. A lot of people are doing that, and the company has always stayed very true to what they are, which is complex, little hint of sweetness in the back end, a lot of flavor, but nothing that's going to overwhelm you. Nothing that's going to dominate any type of strength level. So when the Nicaragua was coming, it was very intriguing to see how it would come together. How would you do something which is supposed to give you a little bit of spice, put you more in that medium to full body? Because I still consider the Connecticut a medium. I still consider the Oscuro a medium plus maybe a little. But this was really the first foray into that medium to full. And again, I've only gotten to smoke 2, and one was at the show, which after 4 days there, I can't remember anything there. It's been very well received, and then Francisco does a great job. Again, he's been doing this a long time. This is not a new kid on the block. He's new to us, to the U.S. market, but he really has done a great job, him and Boris, just putting together these blends. Cops are here.
Oh, the cops are here?
Yeah. I'm sure
it's not the FDA coming to take your cigar away from you.
No comment.
So to get down to this particular blend and everything, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, Zev, because I think the full body renaissance is something that was actually of years past, which I think what makes this cigar really primed for this market, because it is something different than a lot of other companies are doing. I think we're still on the heels or maybe the back end of a Connecticut renaissance, where more people are doing a lot more things with milder cigars, like your Connecticut from last year, for example. And so I think that is why this cigar particularly is exciting for me personally, but I think is going to be exciting to the market as well, because it's kind of bringing back a more full-bodied approach to the market and doing something really exciting with it. And it's not anything over the top. It's a regular production cigar with the Balmoral name, and you're calling it simply Nicaraguan. So there's really not much. There's not a song and dance. There's no gimmick behind it or anything like that. It's just simply trading on the name that you guys have traded on for over a century. I know we keep harping on that, but that's a really fantastic way of going about what you guys are trying to go about with, which is, hey, this is something that we've been doing for decades now, and you're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
And that's the exact phrase. This is not going back to the drawing board. I've heard that internally. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel over and over. This is just taking what they do and taking what they know, and putting a little more of a U.S. twist to some of the blends, because a lot of these come out here before they go international, and really just keep doing what they've always done. And that's why it's so fun to work here. Is like, I know you use the word gimmick because we have some things that might be considered that to some people, but really what we're doing is, it's not reviving an old brand. It's just bringing an old brand to the U.S. that's never been here before.
And that's kind of why I put in, like, for people who are following my social media posts about this upcoming show, I called it the oldest new hotness. And that's exactly what this is, because this Balmoral Cigars and Royal Agio for the U.S. market is really gained some really great critical acclaim in a very short amount of time over the last 24 months. And this has all been under your watches, under your watch and your position. And I thought it was very interesting. I was kind of doing a little, I was doing some research about the company, about you specifically, and the approach that you take to introducing the cigar to retailers. Because even though there have been retailers that have been in the business for decades, they may not be aware of the sustenance behind these cigars and everything. And so you take a very lax approach to introducing your cigars to retailers who haven't tried them or haven't tried them in a while, and letting the cigars speak for themselves.
Yeah, no, and that's been my, well, first, I would love to say, thank you, but it's been our brokers, it's been our our supporters that have really, been out there on, on the front lines doing it. I just kind of come along and try not to mess their days up. But my whole approach to it is exactly what you said, and that's how I built the sales team and the sales side of it from the beginning. Is, listen, we truly believe, and I truly believe, we have an exceptional product. And the product will speak for itself. So when you're educating a retailer, even if they knew the brand before, it's re-educating them, saying, yes, it's been around. You had it in the 90s. Listen, I can name you 7 other brands that you had in the 90s that are back now. It's really, I mean, this is going to sound really funny, but sometimes it's as simple as this: put it in your mouth and smoke it. And our whole approach to it is we try not to tell retailers, oh my God, you have to buy all this to get it in and get it on the shelf, and oh no, if you don't buy this, you can't have this. We have nothing that's you have to buy one to get the other. Is the brands speak for themselves, and in this basically first year, people who have started with one brand, one blend, have expanded as time has gone, and we truly believe that. Let the cigars speak for ourselves. We can tell you all the stories. I tell the background of the company so that people can understand where we're coming from. I kind of have a joke when I'm out in the market, and I know one of my sales guys is watching this right now, and I kind of joke about it when I say it to people. I said, I tell them, we're 115 years old. We do X number of cigars, and we do all this, but at the end of the day is, so again, when you see us say it's the top 5% tobaccos, it's just so you know who we are. And my joke is we're like David Hasselhoff of the cigar business. We're big in Germany. But if a cigar is good, and trust me, there's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of good brands. I mean, what you said about Skip and Mike, what they're doing, Saka's doing. I mean, there's a lot of great products out there, and the brands are what speak for themselves. It's not about forcing stuff down people's throat. It's about smoke it, you will enjoy it, and it'll sell for you.
You mentioned talking about the story of the company and everything, but that's something you kind of steer away from in the first, because a lot of people will, when they're pitching a cigar or pitching anything, it doesn't matter. They want to kind of get that story in there because they think that they can connect to somebody. But you take it, as you said, you take it to a very basic level, like, here, just try the cigar. And then you kind of give them the story,
yeah.
because, and I think that's how powerful the Royal Agio story is that it doesn't need, you don't need to catch it on the, in the first couple minutes. You can actually, you can build on it, as you kind of go through the process and everything. Just enjoy the cigar for what it is. And it's a fantastic product, and, you can enjoy it and not have to hear well, in your case, the 10-volume work that is the history of Royal Agio.
Yeah, no, I mean, it even filters into how we're approaching, I guess you can call it, consumer interaction. Hanging out in the shops, and we didn't go in the first year doing events. Oh, everybody's doing events, and there's events, and if you buy this, you get this free, and you can win this ashtray. We went back to now we had to navigate the FDA in a legal way, but we went back to the old school cut and lights. And I know a lot of people are using it's a cut and light event. What we're doing is, oh yeah, some new sales guys came on in actually the area where I live, and they said, well, what did they have to buy in order to qualify to do that? I said, nothing. As long as they carry something, whatever they carry. I said, let's pick a Tuesday night. Let's pick a Wednesday night, not the Friday night when they're busy. Pick the night when the regulars are in the shop, the guys that actually know tobacco are there to enjoy the cigars, and get 10, 15, 20 guys together, at a minimal charge, because of obviously we can't give away free tobacco products anymore, and sit and smoke it. And it's been working wonders. And that's because we believe the products are good, and it's working. It's again, but when I started in this business, I remember I was working with Joe Cusano at one point doing this traveling trip, and we were in a humidor, and a guy said to him, back when Cusano was part of the Camacho Davidoff, and he says, come on, Joe, I like all this stuff, but I've never had this one of yours. Tell me about it. And he literally takes the cigar, he cuts it, he shoves it in the guy's mouth and goes, smoke it. And it sounds really funny, but it's, if you're making a good product, that's all you need to do. Now, of course, we can't do it free anymore, but there's ways.
Of course. So we've talked a lot tonight about the quality of the tobacco, and this is something I wanted to hone in. We talked a little bit about this before the show, and I thought it was a really interesting story about even with your machine and stuff. There's no question that the premium cigars that I'm smoking, and even the San Pedro line, which is a value smoke, but that was something that you guys really marketed it as. We wanted a very premium product to put into the everyday smoker's hands, which was the idea behind the San Pedro lines. But you were talking about how the quality of the tobacco that goes into what you're smoking tonight, you
Mhm.
know, and this isn't scraps. A lot of times, a lot of people are misinformed, and there might be other companies out there that are using scrap tobaccos or something like that to go into their cigarillos or their value brands. But Royal Agio has a different approach.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. This is the story we were telling before. So, again, I've worked with this company for a long time through different outlets and sold their products before. And it's one thing to hear the company tell even the employee the story. Oh, we only use top quality. We don't use the scraps. And I was actually working up in a different market, and was in a very high profile shop. And um, the owner, who's been part of this business for a long time, was the IPCPR president. I think back when it was RTD. Well, I'm sorry, the PCA president back when it was the RTDA. And he says, I've been in your factory. He said about 7 or 8 years ago. I said, really? He goes, and you guys gave me a heart attack. I said, what do you mean? He says, they pulled out this wrapper leaf and they're showing us these machines. And, of course, oh my God, in the premium market in the US, if you say machine, oh God, if you say Lieberman, people say it's not real. He says, and then honestly, all these cigarillos, by the way, were all handmade until they figured out how to make these machines. He says they pulled out this leaf, and this shop owner has his own brand. And he looks at me and he goes, and they pulled out this leaf, and I'm looking at it going, oh my God, I wish I could have that wrapper for my line. And they shoved it through a shredder. Now, I don't know what the machine itself looked like, but he says they used the same type of tobacco that I would have loved to use in my premium handmade cigar, and they shredded it. They weren't sweeping the scraps up. So it was just a real eye opener to me. They can tell me all they want, but hearing that from somebody who's done this for much longer than I have, say that, we're using the quality tobacco that we say we use. I know a couple of years ago when Drew Estate was distributing it, they brought a bunch of the guys out to Holland and showed them what they did. And they were all shocked by it. It is all, for the cigarillos especially, it is all top quality tobacco. And that's ties into our premium lines when you talked about the stories, is that's how we get access to the tobaccos that we have, because we're buying so much of this top quality tobacco for the cigarillos that we're just now I'm saying this in such a basic way, but instead of shredding some of it for the cigarillos or taking it for the brands internationally, Francisco is now gets his pick and actually gets to use it to make the cigars you're smoking now.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that story just one more time. So this was a leaf that was wrapper grade. This wasn't like premium filler grade, which is great in itself, right? And running that through a shredder, that's one thing entirely. We're talking about quality grade.
The way he explained it to me exactly was, yeah, it was quality grade wrapper. It did have either an imperfection or a hole in it, meaning that it was something that obviously it was borderline being that. I don't want to overplay my hand here, but it was at a quality of the leaf itself that if he could have used if he used it for a smaller vitola.
So the thing I've got to really just emphasize on that is just, I think that a lot of that kind of gets lost on like the everyday person who might be listening or watching the show. And, wrapper leaf is really something that's hard to come by, because it's being placed on the wrapper of tobacco. It has to look immaculate, and it has to be superior quality. So the fact that superior quality of tobacco is actually being used in, we're using the dirty 4-letter word here by saying machine made, is really speaks to what you guys are putting out. And if you guys are taking that care into the machine made, again, the derogatory term of machine made, just imagine if you haven't had the chance to smoke one of the premium cigars, imagine the care and the quality that go into these particular tobacco. And I can vouch for it. I'm smoking it tonight. It's incredible. Every time I light up one of your cigars, I really, really enjoy it. And I haven't smoked as many of Royal Agio as I've smoked of other brands, but even in that small sample size, there have been other brands where I've had a smaller sample size and I've had problems with the cigar, the performance of it. That's never been the case with these particular cigars. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, Zev.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you can say it just because I'm here. It's fine. No, and truth be told, and that's one of the things that I really, for myself, and this is not the company, this is not my sales staff, but how do you gauge? Really, again, I say a first year in existence in a market. What is the thing that I would look for to say, okay, this has staying power. This is products that people are going to like, and what I watch for is, you said, a small sample size and having issues. Really the big thing that I'm watching is the customer complaints, the construction issues, just the stuff that we all deal with. It's a handmade product. Um, and and then the reaction to the cigars itself. And that has been really the grading system for me for the first year. And, as long as I can hold on to that and they don't keep pounding me about numbers, I'm going to continue to do that, because Francisco, it's such a passion to him that, I mean, we we had something happen with one, and whether the person was right or wrong, Francisco took it immediately, went back, found it, and corrected it, even if it didn't need to be corrected, because the company's name is on this product. And I know everybody's going to say this in any type of consumable good or any type of product at all, but they truly believe it, because, I mean, you don't get to be this old and do this for this long without making quality priority number one.
We actually have a question from the chat, Zev, that I think is an interesting point. For a while, you guys Royal Agio was distributed by your former company, by Drew Estate. And
Yep.
so that relationship has obviously changed, doesn't exist anymore in that regard. What's changed since Drew Estate was distributing it?
So actually, ironically, the relationship is still actually very close. Royal Agio is actually the distributor and I don't know the number of countries. I think it's 7 or 8 countries throughout Europe and Asia for Drew Estate. So the relationship is actually still very close. The biggest changes, and I'm saying this is not Drew Estate, this is me, because remember, I was the guy running the sales team. But when you're running a sales team for a company like Drew Estate, your priority 1 is Drew Estate products. Your priority 2, this far off, is Joya de Nicaragua. And then priority 3 is the Royal Agio portfolio. Not that it was put on the back burner, but it wasn't the main focus. Now we have the time and for us to go out and just tell our story without it being intertwined with anybody else's. And that's a problem you have in any type of product where you're trying to tie yourself together. Then you add on top of it, obviously, the line expansions, the addition of different brands. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're now in charge of our own destinies. We're not reliant. And again, it's funny for me to say, because I was on the other side at that time, but we're relying on ourselves. If it didn't make it when it was part of Drew Estate, then there could have been finger pointing. Not that there would have been, the relationships are good, but if this makes it, we know we made it. If there's a problem, we know it's us to address. If there's a shipping problem, if there's a distribution problem, it's us. We are in control of our own destinies right now. And that's been the biggest change. One of the biggest battles that we have is the Balmoral Añejo XO was an existing brand. It was something that was part of the Drew Diplomat program, and it was something that people had, and it didn't have a lot of support behind it. So we're now having to, with some retailers, rebuild those relationships or, show the support behind it that we had before. The other big thing is, and again, I wasn't privy to the high level conversations, executive level, but I can tell you there's a lot more marketing going on. There's a lot more advertising going on. I mean, heck, dumb old me, doing these shows, talking to people, traveling around the country, telling the story of the brands. And that's really the big difference right now. I mean, and it's great having that relationship internationally, because, when we do have people who travel over there, if you ever follow Royal Agio and you see some of their international sales staff, who, by the way, all think I'm nuts from what I hear, because they're very traditional. They're like, who's this bald guy with tattoos that curses all day? But you'll see that they do combination Undercrown and Balmoral Añejo XO Connecticut events. So it's actually been a very good symbiotic relationship between the two.
You talk about that intertwinedness a little bit as being a little bit of a drawback, and in a way you're still kind of fighting that battle. And I think that's why you have, we go back to your travel woes, and why you are still so, while your role here in the US is still so hands-on, because at the moment you guys are using brokers and have a fabulous team of brokers that you guys are working with. I know a few of them that are just absolutely killing it with your brand and everything, and that's fantastic. But that also presents a similar challenge too, because they have they have a responsibility to the other brands that they represent as well. So that's why you still have a very hands-on approach. Then unlike a lot of other companies that do have a national sales brand manager that, you know, can really kind of pick and choose a little bit more, you're still very much on the road a considerable amount and in a lot of these shops to assist that to make sure that intertwinedness doesn't get, you know, kind of dissolved again, or it doesn't kind of get interfered with again. Correct?
Yeah, and it is the big battle, and I don't mean this that they're doing a bad job, but I mean, listen, I mean, I built this whole broker program by first spending 2 months on the phone with people who've done this for a long time on their side. I wanted to know what do they expect, what do they want. You know, you said about me traveling. I mean, trust me, if they would let me come with them every other week, I would. But I'm very realistic. They have other products, they have other brands. We've been very lucky with the team that's come on board with us because, again, as a brand new brand, in essence, to everybody, why would somebody who's so well established and has done this for so long take us when they have so many larger brands? And the feedback from them always is, well, we know who you guys are, so we know where it's going to go. Then you add in, we're primarily a Dominican brand, where a lot of the brands that are being brokered are mostly Nicaraguan, some are Honduran. So we also give them a diverse portfolio, which has been very helpful for us also. But no, I mean, listen, the more they'll let me out on the road with them, I mean, again, they're busy, the better it is, because I don't want to say I can tell the story better, but I only have that priority. I have tunnel vision, and it's my job to do that. And, you know, we joked when you asked me to be on the show, and I kind of joked about, I'm like, you know, who the hell am I to be on this show? But you know, I've taken upon myself that this is my role. And no, I'm never going to sit there and tell everybody that I blended the cigars. That's what we have Francisco for. And I'm not going to tell people that I created the branding. No, my job is to go out and tell the story and to give people a reason to try it and to curse at them and to throw things at them and to hopefully screw their flights up. But to bring the brand back to what I said got me in this business too, which is I'm just some normal schmo off the street. I mean, I'm a very lucky guy on where I am, and I've had some great mentors through my career. And, you know, if I can tell those stories when I'm out there and give them a reason to try it, then that's my job. And then guess what? My brokers make more money, and then they're happy, and it's a never-ending relationship.
So one of my last couple of questions here, Zev, and this is something you brought up. So this is my experience with you hasn't been this. So I don't know where this is coming from. So I'm excited to see where this is going. But apparently you've been in this business for a long time now, but apparently you have a very roller coaster relationship with the media. So is it true, the rumors that you actually really do secretly hate me a little bit, even though you're having this wonderful conversation with me?
Yes. No,
what?
So how it all started, and it's funny because I'm sure Coop's listening because he's been part of it with me since the beginning. I mean, I knew him before he was Coop. You know, back in the day when the IPCPR it was IPCPR back then, started letting the media into the IPCPR. Back then, and anybody who's been around long knows how it was back then. And it was anybody could just say they had a blog, and they just said they had they have a media site, and they were in. And you know, I worked for Drew Estate at the time, and you know, listen, Jonathan Drew is a celebrity and is somebody that people want to meet. And I'm standing there in this trade show booth, and I've got a retailer here that's doing X number of dollars, and they're a great retailer, and they just want to say hi to John. And meanwhile, there's a line of 77 people with video cameras taking up my time, and I'm a sales guy, and I want my retailer to have a time. So at the beginning, it was horrible. It was, I mean, I'm sure you guys know that. You know who these people were. It's not them. They were letting anybody in. There was no credentials. There was no validation of what they are. You know, I get hit with this every time I go. And yeah, you know, I still push it every once in a while. But at the end of the day, you guys do a service now in a way to the industry because you're getting the news out there to the people that want to pay attention to it. Because you and Coop and I can name them all, and I don't want to get in the middle of everything, and Half Wheel and Garofalo, and I can do this all day. I mean, you've become the go-to people for information now because you do it with the same passion that the companies and the manufacturers do. But at the beginning, you know what it was. It was, hey man, hey, I got this blog, you should check it out. It's www.ismokecigars, and can I get some samples? I know I'm saying that because Coop jokes about it all the time, but he knows
Right.
That's the way it was. So I got a bad reputation. I mean, actually, if anybody knows David Jones, he'll tell you all about it. There was a Chattanooga tweet up for years, and it was I was part of it since the first one. And I remember one time I crossed the line and everybody was sitting at the table smoking, and back then Twitter was still really big. And I was like, are you losers really just tweeting each other while you're sitting across from each other? And it didn't go over well. And if I could take it back, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably still say the same thing again. But at the end of the day, it's very different now than it was. And all right, I'm going to stop now. I still don't like it.
No, I think you bring up a good point though, that the media culture has come a long way. Now, I wasn't fortunate enough, or in the way you're describing it, unfortunate enough to be a part of that mess that it was back then, but it's come a long way. And you mentioned some really high profile media people. I won't lump myself in that group. I have a great partnership with one of them, and that's William Cooper, of course, Cigar Coop. You mentioned Half Wheel, and of course Garofalo with Cigar, what he's done as well. And he's tapped into basically every part of this business.
Kiss My Ash also. I mean, there's tons of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones that have great presences, great presence at the trade show. I have a privilege to work alongside with Cigar Dojo as well. I'm close with the Cigar Federation guys, developing palates, and what Aaron Loomis has done, who's really the developing palates team is really high on what Royal Agio has done in the last couple of years. And as the quote goes, Aaron hates everything, and he doesn't hate you guys. So that's something right there. But, let me ask you again, Zev, just to make sure I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but when it comes down to, do you really see the value of what the media brings to what will now be the PCA trade show year in, year out? And could you imagine what the trade show would be without us?
Well, I mean, of course I can imagine it because I was around back when it wasn't, but I think you guys are necessary. I mean, we have when you ask me the similarities between beer and the tobacco business, nowadays it's very different with craft beer, but we have so many people that are part of this industry, just the average cigar consumer that want to know, and they want to know for good reasons. And how else are they going to get their information if you guys aren't there? If you guys aren't there telling people, hey, this is the new thing I saw, this is the great thing that they're doing, this is the Sir Robert Peel, or, this is, I mean, please don't put any more Juan Cancel, diving into pool pictures. But
if I could erase that photo from my memory, I certainly would. I could just have some team from Inception extract it. That would be fantastic.
But I mean, even the manufacturers, we depend on you. I mean, if you take what went on this year with the announcements of, I don't want to get into all the changes that are coming with PCA and CigarCon, but I mean, we were getting our information from you guys at that point because we're busy. We're in there. We're trying to sell product. You guys are there passing on the necessary information to people. So I can't believe this. If you had asked me this 7 years ago that I'd ever be saying this, I'd laugh at myself. But then you guys also got to understand one other thing too, is at that point I worked for Drew Estate, and this is before Undercrown. And back then also, the media guys were the ones trashing acid all day. Now I look, and the guys that are out there, that you guys that are doing this, is you understand the value of that brand to this industry. Because it's about the industry, it's about the love for tobacco, it's about the love for these companies. So now there's no way we could make it without you guys being there doing what you're doing. God damn.
And I think that's what I try to bring with this show, not to toot my own horn or anything at all, but I think that I absolutely love this industry, and I love tobacco, and I love premium tobacco. And there's things that I'm uncomfortable with in even the own industry. And Fabian Ziegler and I joke about this all the time. Infused cigars, flavored cigars aren't necessarily my bag. They just never really have been part of my smoking lexicon. They're just not something I gravitate towards. Fabian's continuing to work on me over as years pass, but I can appreciate it, and I do enjoy them. Like I smoked a cigar when I interviewed him, the new Acid Plush, and I enjoyed it from a tobacco perspective, and it was a very, very good product. The 20th and the cigar that they're celebrating their Acid 20 with is a very good cigar, even though it's not in my typical wheelhouse. And the same can be said about the Royal Agio cigarillos. I'm not a cigarillo guy. I mean, I like smaller cigars typically. I'm a big Robusto. I'm smoking one right now. I'm a big Robusto and Corona guy. That's my jam. Cigarillos are a little too small. I don't want to smoke it just for 10 minutes and be done. But there is clearly there is a great market for it, and that's what I want to bring with this show, is that it's more than just the Toro crowd. It's more than just the Gordo crowd, even though Coop says, Gordos are Vitolas too, Bear. But there is a lot to the story of the premium tobacco industry, and you guys are center stage in that.
Yeah, no, and that's all we want to do is get our story out there. And I mean, not to backtrack to the whole acid thing too, but I used to joke. I mean, listen, that was part of my life for a long time, and Fabian's one of my best friends in this business. And man, I could show you some videos. Now, you know, I mean, how many times when I was out there, you know, pushing a product when again it was Liga Privada, it was acid, it was Chateau Real, and you know, somebody would come in and they would say, and they do it with our cigarillos too, or machine made, and they'd say, oh man, you know, I can't believe somebody smokes that flavored crap. And I'd say, listen, I meet people every day. Every day. I still do to this day who say to me, you know what? I don't smoke Cuba Cuba anymore, but that was my first cigar. Those products bring more new smokers into what we do than any other products out there. And they're necessary. So I used to tell people all the time, just like you said, you don't have to like it, but you got to respect it because it's what the consumer wants and it's what they're smoking. And I'm going to tell you again, because I go back to my sales side all the time, is there is no, I mean, you may disagree out of your shop, but there's no more loyal consumer than the acid consumer. You know, I used to joke with people all the time that if you're in a shop and a guy comes in and he's looking for the Balmoral Añejo XO Nicaragua, and the shop doesn't have it, there's a couple cigars in there they can recommend that'll make them happy, that
Satisfy them. Yeah, sure.
Satisfy them. If somebody comes in and I watch it every day and they ask for a Cuba Cuba, and you say I don't have it, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint for a shop also, and then you know what? Then the guy comes in, he hangs out, he sees the guys, he says, man, you know, I've never had. I used to joke all the time. I said the proper progression was you start with an infused cigar, an acid, a tobacco, you know, a natural. Well, it's not infused, but you know, then okay, you want to try some tobacco, but you still love that sweet tip. Then you move on to a baccarat or whatever the product is. It's like at a time that gives you the sweet cap, but then gives you the all tobacco flavor. And then as you do that, move yourself into a mild Connecticut. And it's a basic progression. And I'm going to tell you, half the people I met that have done that, they still go back and smoke a Cuba Cuba once in a while. So, you know, we go through the same things. You know, it's what we're trying to combat here when it comes to the whole, you know, machine made. You know, it's still the same tobacco. It's good. It's great quality. It's great flavor. It smokes well. And, you know, it's just about getting people to understand that premium tobacco comes in so many forms. Never, ever overlook one of them over the other.
I think that's an interesting point because you talk about the progression of a cigar smoker. And I think that's why it's easier for me to return to the cigarillo, because when I started with premium cigars and I didn't start with the flavored infused route. And if I had, I probably would have a different perspective. But I did smoke machine made and I did smoke lesser quality machine made, and then I did smoke better quality machine made that are still valued price. And I think that's why it's easier for me to go back and appreciate that a little bit more personally. Mm-hmm. But my joke is for the person who comes in, because I was one of them for a long time that would bash on an acid and say, well, who the hell smokes a Cuba Cuba? Nobody smokes Cuba Cuba. And I hear that line a couple, you know, more than I should, and my response is always, you know, for the fact that nobody smokes acid Cuba Cubas, Drew Estate sells a lot of acid Cuba Cubas. So somebody's smoking them, and I guarantee it's not them. So, because and people come into it. So I think it's a really great way of looking at it, that it's something that people can return back to, and there's a lot of familiarity to it. But you're absolutely right. The progression of the smoker typically starts in one of those routes. I started from a different end, but there are a lot of, I would say a majority would probably start with the way that you described.
And that was just me learning from people. And you know, my territory was a predominantly military area. So that's also how it started. Military is one of the bigger supporters of the infused products. And, you know, I met these guys. I mean, you joke, but, you know, people say, you said it nicely. People wouldn't say to me, oh, who smokes acid cigars? I say, come on, what kind of little F word, what kind of little, you know, smokes these things? And I'd be like, oh, yo. That Marine right there does, and that Hell's Angel right there does. So be careful who you call what.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it's something that I've always believed in, and it's not just in these products. Is listen, everybody's got their taste. Everybody's got what they like. And you know, I remember it's ironic because I used to use Swisher as the example while I worked there. I say, listen, I don't care if somebody's smoking a Swisher at that point. If they're enjoying smoking, and if they're not cutting it open, doing other stuff, well, that's up to them. And if that's what you can use to then bring them in and bring them into our world, they won't leave. And, you know, we just, you know, our downfalls in industries, we do have some people in this industry who are very stuck up about it. I mean, I still get into arguments on social media about acid. And I kind of have to laugh sometimes because I'm like, of all people to do it, why would I be the guy to do this? Because that brand's important. That brand's important to this industry, and so is Macanudo, and so they're important because these are the things that people smoke, and it brings them into our world. And you know what? There was a shop not too far from me when I first got in this, and he basically threw out every major brand you could think of, and all he carried was only boutiques. And that's, that's a world that can work now. My argument was I knew the town he was in was when the guy comes in and he asks for his Macanudo or his Acid Cuba Cuba or his Cohiba or whatever main name brand that they're asking for, and you don't have it, they're not going to come back. This is your opportunity to bring them into our world. And then what will happen is you won't have to sell them anything. You made them feel comfortable grabbing whatever cigar it is that you don't think is good enough. They're going to sit in that shop and they're going to get sucked in just like I did. They're going to be sitting with these guys who have this relationship with them, and then they're going to start talking to them. And then they're going to say, hey, man, if you really like that, you should try this. And then you can steer them, if you want to do that, to something else. But everybody has a place in this, and everybody has a reason that we need them in this business. We're small. And at the end of the day, the more people involved from a manufacturer, from a sales, from a retail, from a media, from a consumer level, the more power we have. And, it's a shame sometimes. And, and I still fight it to this day, again, because of the cigarillos like we're talking about, or I use the evil machine made. But listen, there's people like that in everything. And you let it go and move on.
Well, Zev, I really appreciate your time tonight. And before we wrap up, I always have this kind of curveball segment. And I do apologize because it's not really a curveball. It's more like, I always kind of joke that it's more like a softball that I toss up to people. And I usually actually let people in on what the question is going to be. And I apologize, I didn't get to it. So if you don't feel like answering, that's totally cool.
It's more fun this way.
You did bring up an interesting point about members in the armed forces smoking cigars. And there's something about you that's also very patriotic as well. And that, of course, is your tattoos. You have some very patriotic tattoos and everything. So I was kind of interested on how that came about, why you decided on that theme for your body art. And then I have a follow-up soft curveball question for you.
Right. No, it's a very simple answer. Is I was lucky enough, I guess I'm lucky, but lucky enough to grow up in a very upper middle class family, very tied to our little world. And I didn't understand how great I had it in the country that I live in. And, I'm sure people from other countries are watching are probably screaming at me right now, and then through faults of my own, and I don't have a family anymore, haven't spoken to me since I'm basically fresh 18 years old. And, I don't have a college degree. I have a strange name. And if I look back at my life, and I'm not that old now, but I look at where I am and what I've been able to accomplish, then I added in all the time that I've spent in front of Camp Lejeune, Fort Bragg. I mean, these guys are my true heroes. It just became really a way for me to honor them. I've got the 9/11 flag for the first responders. I've got, just very patriotic stuff because I realize how lucky I have it to live in the country that I live in, to be able to do what I do and have the life that I have without the education, without the just hard work. And I was able to do it. So I guess that's the answer.
Well, Zev, so the question I have to ask is that if you could go back and change any of your tattoos, would you change any of them? And what would it be to?
No, I wouldn't change them. Maybe there's some artistic differences. Some of the things I did was a little more cartoonish versus more realistic. But no, there's nothing on here that I would change. I mean, everything on here has a reason, has something that means something to me. So there's nothing I would change. I mean, I can keep adding to them as I go. It's just, that's the fun of it. But no, I wouldn't change one of them.
So you have a Minuteman piece on, I believe it's on your right shoulder, right? And the Minuteman is carrying a very modern weapon,
yep.
AR-15, I believe.
Yep. Well, a cartoonish version of, but yes.
Would you keep that more authentic, or would you keep it with a little bit more modern day flair?
No, this one I like. This one was actually the artist himself down in Florida. We were just kind of come up with an idea what we could do, and he actually drew it himself. So, you know, and again, I have a big respect for any type of art, and that includes what we do in the cigar makers. And now he drew it, I went with it, and you know what? It's a piece for me to remember him by.
So as a person who takes your body art very seriously and has a deep connection to it, as you just described, if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I want to emulate that. I want to copy that. I want that piece on me," would you be honored or would it offend you?
I guess I'd be honored. I mean, everything I have, somebody else has, so I don't look. I mean, what I have on my body is not special, and what I mean by that is it's not things that nobody has. So no, I'd be honored if so. I mean, I've had it happen before. I mean, I know I have 3 friends who have We the People. You guys can't see because of the light right across
Right.
their arm because they saw it and they just did it in their own versions. No, I'd be totally honored.
That was the first tattoo that I noticed on you when I first met you, and I don't have any tattoos, and I absolutely loved it. I thought, and I'm glad you mentioned it tonight because I think that's out of all the ones that I've seen, I think that's still my favorite. So
It's the most important one. It's funny in the world we live in today. It's funny you mentioned what was on here and the political strife we're going through, and you know, people will give me trouble for that all the time, and I keep trying to explain to them, this is not left, this is not right, this is not Democrat, this is not Republican, this is we the people, this is us. This is us against everybody. This is us. We control our own destiny. So that's why it's there. That's why it matters the most to me. So
awesome. Very well said. Zev, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I know it's Sunday night, and I know we've made light of it, but I know your travel woes do take you far beyond the call of duty, week in and week out. And so any precious time that you have with your wonderful family, I know is valuable. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me for a little over an hour tonight, especially as late as it is on a Sunday evening. So thank you so much.
that's my pleasure. I'm on my back deck. I actually go to my own bed. So you know what? It was worth it.
Awesome. Well, for everyone out there, we really appreciate all of your likes, shares, and comments. Thanks for everyone tuning in on Facebook Live. Going forward, Elos Fumar Takes will be broadcasted live every Sunday night at this time, 9:30 Central, via Facebook Live. So definitely check out our Facebook page for upcoming guests. Awesome guests like the one we had tonight, Zev, who still thinks he's nobody, but I think he's definitely somebody, and I know you do too. Um, it's been an amazing, amazing evening talking shop with you, Zev. We think we hit the full gamut. Really talked about the story of Royal Agio, but also your background in the industry, as well as other things too, including your awesome tattoos. So if you guys
Thank
are
you.
tuning in tonight, you can continue to look back on our Facebook page, but also check us out on our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or TuneIn, as well as any other place. And we are brought to you by Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. If you are listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, we thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And Zev Kaminetsky of Royal Agio Cigars was my guest for our 85th take. This was ELOSOFUMARTAKES. We'll see you next week. And guess what, everyone? Yes, sir. We will see you next time. Of Royal Agio Cigars was my guest for our 85th take. This is ELOSOFUMARTAKES. We'll see you next week. Guess what, everyone? Yes, sir. We will see you next time.